Hi everyone, Lisa Haven here, and in today's report, I really want to shoot you straight with what's going on right now in the United States of America, so I'm going to be very open with you. But as most of you are already well aware, if you're a Christian, a Trump supporter, a conservative, a libertarian, then you are already experiencing some level of censorship or persecution. And by the way, leave me a comment on that because I want to read through the comment section and see some of what you guys have already experienced. But in my report today, I am going to show you how what the Bible talked about is actually happening right now in the United States of America. And it's been happening on a global scale for quite some time, but now it's hit our very homeland. And Christians are now being called to be de-radicalized, as I'm going to show you in a moment. We've also been listed as potential terrorists if you have certain beliefs that fall in line with Christianity. And there's new labels that have surfaced, everything from white supremacy, which nobody really knows exactly what they mean by a white supremacist. That used to mean people like, or organizations like the KKK, right? Which I'm totally against, horrible organizations, but today it's taken on a whole new meaning. And also Christian nationalism. So I'm going to get into all of that. But before I do, I want to give a quick shout out to my partner at preparewithlisa.com. I want to really encourage you guys, please have food storage on hand. You never know what crisis is going to hit. We know what happened in Texas with the power outage. Thankfully, my parents who live in Texas had food storage on hand. So check it out at preparewithlisa.com. And right now you can get $50 off, and it's a limited time offer on that 4-week food supply kit or even the 3-month kit. If you don't have at least a couple of months worth, I want to encourage you to check that out. And that's $200 off for a limited time. So check it out at preparewithlisa.com. All right, moving on. Let's get into this this new refreshed call to de-radicalize Christians or Christians extremists, right? But then the question has to be asked, what is a Christian extremist? And I'm going to show you in government documents what that definition is. But before I do, I want you to see this article. This is on foreignpolicy.com, so a mainstream news source here. The U.S. needs de-radicalization for Christian extremists. Programs that are basically designed to reform violent jihadists could also help tackle the spread of QAnon and other conspiracy theories in the evangelical communities. Now, the article goes on to state this. In the very beginning, what they do, and let me scroll up a little bit, is it kind of paints the light about President Trump, Trump supporters, the Capitol 6 riots, and all of that. So it's constantly this entire article surrounds President Trump and his supporters and is basically, in a very roundabout way, calling all Trump supporters radicals, all right? But here's what they go on to say about Christian is religious people, right, are particularly susceptible to conspiracy theories due to their belief in the supernatural and their endorsement of good versus evil worldview. So right from the very beginning, if you are a religious person, and in this case, they're specifically talking about Christians, then you're automatically susceptible, right? So there's the opening of that, but it dives in a little bit further and it states this. Nothing, however, has shifted the narrative regarding evangelicals and QAnon as much as the Capitol insurrection. No longer is it just seen as a fringe belief among white evangelicals. Rather, it's the basis for a newly emerging violent Christian extremism. So now this article goes on to say that because Christians are so susceptible to conspiracy theories, that QAnon was a big movement within the Christian realm, and they became susceptible to QAnon. So this is where they're heading at, right? This is the direction they're heading, and is opening their platform for a straight up call to de-radicalize Christians the way they do jihadists. Now it goes on with QAnon conspiracy theories proliferating within white evangelical Christian communities. It's imperative that these religious communities consider how to purge themselves of an ideology that is explicitly linked to extreme domestic terrorism. In doing so, it's time for Christians to consider lessons learned from other religious communities who have contended with extremist ideas prospering within their congregation. So there's a lot here. First of all, I want to comment on QAnon. I've never agreed with it. I always said that it was complete nonsense and not listen to it. The second thing is, notice how this whole article always says white evangelicals. Well, there's evangelicals in every race, color, creed. So I'm really like, why are they always calling out the white people? And third, they're literally now calling for churches to unradicalize, if you will, their congregation. And here's the thing. If you're a true Christian, right, have heinous, horrible crimes and murders been committed in the name of Christianity? Absolutely, they have. They've been committed in the name of Muslim religion. They've been committed in the name of the Jewish religion. Fill in the blank, right? Every single religious group can have some form of radicalization. Now, that said, if you're a Christian and you follow the Bible, then you're very well aware that just because somebody does something in the name of God doesn't mean that they are a real Christian. At the pulpit already, they preach sharing the love of Jesus. They don't preach go out and commit violent acts. So if you follow the Bible, you're already teaching your congregation the love of Jesus Christ and how to spread the love of Jesus Christ. But here, I believe and feel like they're calling for things to be taken farther. And again, the question has to be answered: what are extremist views and what exactly are you wanting these churches to teach? And that's the answer that I would like this article to say. And they're not so much as saying, they're just saying it can radicalize and turn into something bad. So something has to be done about these Christians, like de-radicalizing their mental capacity or whatever. But it goes on to say this: in recent years, and here's where they give kind of more of a breakdown, Denmark, the United Kingdom, and Saudi Arabia, keep in mind the countries that they're referencing here. Saudi Arabia, they don't really have a good track record on the way that they treat their women now, do they? And they've got a lot of crazy stuff going on in Saudi Arabia, but that's who they reference. And even Singapore, they have all experimented with various approaches to aid individuals in their transition from extremism, largely Islamic extremism. I'm surprised that they didn't mention China. You know how they are re-educating the Uyghur Muslims? Well, this is the same thing. They're re-educating people in these countries, and it's Islamic extremism is what they're referencing here. But these myriad strategies and approaches range from utilizing cognitive development, community reintegration, ideological reform, and mental health counseling, to name a few. Just as governments have sought to stop the spread of Islamic extremism in the past 2 decades, they must now confront the rise of Christian fundamentalism the same way that they would all these extremist groups, right? But they go on a little bit more. The Biden administration, and again, if you read above this, it talks about how, again, it talks about President Trump and his supporters. And I really encourage you to read this whole article, but it really dives into President Trump and his supporters. And it all revolves how Trump did everything bad, how Trump is part and caused this movement. Okay. But then they go on to praise Biden's administration. The Biden administration acknowledgement of the importance of the prevention, rehabilitation, and reintegration is a promising sign that the U.S. is at least moving in the right direction. One of us previously served as a government analyst and now works outside of the government, a background that helps us see the need for more holistic approaches. There is now a unique opportunity to readjust and offer new, innovative solutions to tackle domestic extremism in light of the changing threat to the environment. At present, a uniform, comprehensive de-radicalization program does not exist. In other words, they very clearly are wanting one to exist. And if they want one to exist, then what exactly does that look like? Right? Re-education camps of sorts for Christians or what? right? But I go on. But there are already organizations that have engaged with this issue. Organizations like Free Radicals, Take Charge, provide opportunities for individuals in and out of extremism to aid in diverting individuals from violent actions, drugs, and gangs. And initiatives like the American Muslims Against Terrorist and Extremist effort led by Muhammad shows that the importance of clergy and interfaith dialogue to combat extremism, and which will be helpful in confronting domestic extremism. And then it closes with this: as the U.S. government seeks to come up with the best approach for de-radicalization programs. Are they in the process of looking into that? Officials should learn from efforts that are already working, which are primarily based in cities that can be applied specifically to rural communities. Now, if you think it's just the one article, check out this Business Insider article. Radicalized Christian nationalism is one of the biggest threats facing the U.S. Christian leaders, and they need to root the extremism from their communities. And notice the date on this, March 24th, 2021. Both this article and the prior article were both written in March. But the question needs to be asked then, what exactly is a radicalized Christian or a Christian extremist? What is it? What is the definition, and what exactly about the faith do they consider radical? Well, according to the first article, they said, as you saw, that Christians in general are very susceptible to conspiracy theories because they believe in good and evil. And they referenced President Trump and they referenced the QAnon craziness, right? And they said, okay, if you believe in that. But what is, again, the definition of Christian radicalization by the U.S. government? Well, for that, I want to take you to a document that I've showed numerous times here on my channel. And this is it, Right-Wing Extremist document. This was put out by Janet Napolitano and it basically warns of right-wing extremism in the U.S. And I think it was either put out in 2009 or 2010. But this document references what that is. And take a look here. If you scroll down to the second page, it says, right-wing extremism in the United States can be broadly divided into these groups, movements, and adherents that are primarily hate-oriented, based on hatred of particularly religious, racial, or ethnic groups. And those are mainly anti-government, those who reject federal authority in favor of state or local authority. What's wrong with wanting more power to the state? But I digress. Or rejecting government authority entirely. It may also include groups and individuals that are dedicated to a single issue, such as opposing abortion or opposing, may I add in the word, illegal immigration. So is this the definition of an extremist radical Christian, that you oppose abortion? And not only that, what other things are found in this document? If you scroll on over to page 9, if you believe in anti-government conspiracy theories and end-time prophecies, that could also motivate extremist individuals and groups to do things, right? To do stuff. That's according to this government document here, folks. And how about this? Also this is on page 6, fear of communist regimes and related conspiracy theories characterizing the government's role as either complicit in a foreign invasion or acquiescing to a one world government plan inspired by extremist members of the militia movement to target government and military facilities in the past. So if you believe in the one world government, end time Bible prophecies, you're against abortion, then you could potentially be a radical extremists. Are these the views that they're wanting to de-radicalize Christians? In other words, that would call for, a rewriting of a lot of the Bible. That's in a document from a government report. But don't worry. There are many Christian organizations jumping on the bandwagon as well. Take a look at this. And by the way, I want to tell you guys, I am going to be and I've got to bring up this right here at a conference, Steve Quayle Virtual Online Conference, June 11th and 12th. It's not an in-person thing. It's all virtual. And I'm going to be really diving into detail on some of these government documents, and there's a lot of them, that exist, and how we went from deplorables to racist and xenophobics to white supremacists to terrorists in a matter of months. And I'm really going to dive into it in this Extinction Protocol event. So check it out at gen6.com. All right, so back to this article. There's Christians jumping in. Christians, and I can't vouch for what kind they are, but it is what it is. Only God knows that. But Christians who are standing against other Christians as well. And it says in this Christianity Today article, what is a Christian nationalist? So they're addressing the question, what does everybody think it is? Well, good question. I want to know what Christianity Today thinks it is. And if you scroll down in this article, here's their definition. And they ask the question, what do Christian nationalists want that is different from normal Christian engagement in policies? Now, there's a lot more to this article than what I'm sharing here, but this is just a pinch of part of it, okay? But it says Christian nationalists want to define America as a Christian nation, and they want the government to promote a self-culture template as the official culture of the country. Some have advocated for an amendment to the Constitution to recognize Americans' Christian heritage. Others reinstituted prayer in public schools. Some work to enshrine a Christian nationalist interpretation of American history in the school curriculum, including that America has a special relationship with God or has been chosen by him to carry out a special mission on earth. Others advocate for immigration restrictions specifically to prevent a change to the American religious and ethnical demographics. I've never heard of such a thing, or change to the American culture. I've never heard of anybody talk about that, but I digress. Some want to empower the government to take a stronger action against, right, circumscribed immoral behavior. So you could be a Christian nationalist if you want the government to take a stronger action against immoral behavior. If you believe that Christian was that America was founded on a Christian heritage, there is a lot of Christians in the founding fathers' documents, and not to mention statements by them stating stuff like that. And if you want prayer in the school, right, these kinds of things. Wait, what? Yeah. Now, there's other things that they add in, like this whole wanting your country, one particular race, religion, and that's not what God is about. God loves all people of colors, race, and creeds, and God also gave us the freedom of choice. That's a biblical principle. So there's some twisted stuff in here, but there's also stuff that draws a very thin line. There's nothing... I mean, requesting prayer in schools? I mean, this is crazy. But don't worry, there's pastors all across the country who have signed on against this kind of mentality, evangelical statement condemning Christian nationalism role in the January 6th insurrection. Everybody's against what happened at January 6th, right? But they throw a little more into it, and there's 500 pastors who have now signed on to this, saying maybe that's why membership in churches is plummeting. You can see red state, loss of faith. American church membership plummets. And you can also see fewer than 50% of Americans have formal church membership for the first time in 80 years. Well, I don't blame a lot of people anymore, because there's a lot of crazy stuff happening in the churches. And again, I bring up Luke, you will be dragged to synagogues and prisons for his name's sake. Now, I don't know, nobody knows when end time prophecy will officially happen. We can just look at the things that are happening around us, right? But it's a really thin line between Christian extremism, Christian radicalization, Christian nationalism. There's a lot of just regular biblical principles in all of that. So I'm really wondering, what does that look like to the article writer, to the government, to Joe Biden's administration? Can you detail it out for us? And they already kind of have. Anyhow, I got to tell you, because of everything that's going on, this is why I created restrictedrepublic.com. I created it because of this very thing. And we don't know what tomorrow holds. And we have to be honest, we don't. And I don't know how much longer we're going to be on these alternative platforms. I hate to say it. It shouldn't matter what your religion or political view is. You should be allowed to have free speech. I don't care if you're a Muslim, a Jew, a Christian, none of it. Shouldn't matter. But that's not the way it is. But anyhow, if you want to check out restrictedrepublic.com right now, I'll tell you what, we're doing it for $1. This is the last week I'm really going to offer this. Last couple of days. It's very limited. But plug the word dollar in there in the monthly membership fee, and you'll have $1 for 1 month just to try it out, and you can cancel anytime you want. But get on over there and support what we do at restrictedrepublic.com. Anyhow, thanks again for tuning into the channel. I'm Lisa Haven, signing out.